Which country's capital has the fastest growing population?
Tell me.
Ireland. Every day it's Dublin.
No.
Hi, welcome to the Suplex Siblings web series.
Obnoxiously relevant. Gosh.
Where we talk about all things entertainment, mostly in the professional wrestling and sports entertainment realm. Today we're, talking about some interesting stuff. My name is Chris.
And mine is Chrislyn. And I think we're both a little too excited. We've been really looking forward to this particular topic for a while. Not that this topic is a topic, it's a human being, a she, a that, Miss Becky Lynch.
A that.
Her. I need no more caffeine.
Yeah. Becky Lynch, one of the GOATs. I said it, you heard it here first.
I don't think we're the first, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I've been saying it since day one.
Okay.
Ish.
Mark.
What? Oh my.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're right. You have been hardcore standing Miss Becky Lynch since she showed up in NXT.
yes.
It's true. I recall those days. I never really watched much NXT until her match with Sasha down there. And that was such a pinnacle moment for me as a fan, as a lady fan, because that was the first time that I actually saw a women's match that was a match.
Yeah, not just,
That
hey,
was a
slap
match.
fight.
And yeah, and I didn't watch much, like I said, NXT, so I didn't know that they were doing that over there. I was still seeing on WWE their 30-second matches, their potty break matches, their, and to actually witness that, her match with Sasha Banks, I was floored, and that completely changed everything for me in terms of watching and enjoying. Yeah, honestly, it changed my life as a fan. Like, that was huge for me growing up watching WWE at that time, and actually finally, like, everything kind of came to fruition, and that was like the start of this women's evolution that they're in now.
I agree. And that was your first time seeing her in a match.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it wasn't necessarily exactly when she debuted, because I didn't watch it the very day that she debuted, but I do remember when she had first come to NXT. She had the stereotypical Irish gimmick. She came out with a very shamrock music, Hornswoggle-esque, wearing green and gold, coming out doing an Irish jig. And I remember I've seen, some things I've heard her talking about how, it kind of made her uncomfortable, because it's like,
it wasn't her.
It wasn't her. It wasn't Becky.
You could see that, though, when she adopted the steampunk gimmick. It was like, whoa, like a whole new person.
Well, but I remember when I had first seen her, though, I was like, she's good. That was the first thing I remember saying when I saw her match.
Mm-hmm.
Was I said, she's really good. Like, she's gonna be a big deal. Then I believe it was the very next week she came out. She had this kind of rocker-esque gimmick. She was wearing like some plaid tights and everything. This was right before she had turned heel in NXT. She was still kind of, she was still new, so she wasn't necessarily a face or a heel yet. She hadn't really established her link. But I just remember being a fan. I was like, hey, this girl is really good at what she does. It's crazy, because, I mean, back then NXT was still kind of coming up. It was coming out of the whole reality show phase still. Right. Obviously, it was a few years after, Neville had already established a bunch of things there. He had already won the championship. Seth Rollins,
all the members of the
first
Shield
champion.
That already branched
But
off.
that's really when they started to hype it up and make it its own brand, was around that time period. Sasha Banks was, that's when her title reign for the NXT Women's Championship started. She beat Charlotte.
It's crazy to think about that, about them.
Yeah.
At that point in time, you know, thinking about like, I can only imagine in their minds at that point, they were thinking, "Wow, this is as good as it gets. This is amazing. I'm so excited." And then look at them now. It's insane. There aren't any words.
No, there really isn't. And after that match was when she kind of aligned herself with Sasha. She made her heel turn. She was basically like Sasha's bodyguard. They started Team Bay, Best at Everything, which was a great name in my opinion. It's kind of cheesy, but it's great.
It's fitting.
I feel like Becky came up with it now because, I mean, she's the pun queen. But that, I remember that just being really good for, not only for women's wrestling and the fans, but just wrestling in general. I mean, it sounds cheesy to say, but that was one of the more interesting things that has happened in the past decade, in my opinion at least, was that entire arc with the 4 Horsewomen in NXT. With the only issue I really had was the portrayal of, which I understood why, because Becky was new, but she was basically just like Sasha Banks's lapdog, bodyguard, whatever. Which is why I found it really interesting when they finally separated and, you know, they had the match for the title.
Like
Becky dyed her hair.
That was so groundbreaking. Like that put women on the map.
Definitely. And I mean, it really gave them their own spotlight. It gave them their own ability to do what they wanted to do and what they knew would be them. They could be themselves, which you could really see through Becky. I mean, like I said, she came out, she had completely different dyed hair. I think you weren't a fan of it at the time, but I remember being like, it's whatever.
You could tell though, like, she was fully embodying who she was. And I think, like, you know, I've heard The Rock talk about this a lot, where, and he's right, you know, as a fan, I agree, and I know that he's right about this, is the fans can smell it, no pun intended, when you are not being authentic. They know, and they will eat you alive. And I think that for her, that was the best thing that could have happened for her, because we all got a taste of who she is, what she's all about. And I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Because at first, you know, I was a little apprehensive. I mean, I think everybody was, you know, when she was just kind of hanging out with Sasha.
It's kind of like,
you know, like, I don't know who she is. Okay,
I was definitely disappointed, because I was like, she's so good. Why is she, you know, just the side person?
Right. And I think that, I mean, it's interesting because I look at her entire career now, and I think that kind of circumstance is what gives her the legitimacy and the credibility that she now has, because she has always had to prove it.
Yeah.
She's never had to tell us
she's
that
never been given it. She's never had to tell you. Yeah.
She just is.
She just does it.
She shows up. She does the work. She gets it done. She lights the whole place on fire. Like, that's, nothing can top that. That's just like mic drop in the ring. That's what she does every time she goes out there, because she doesn't have to, you know, there aren't any smoke and mirrors with her performance.
No.
It's just, this is Becky Lynch. So I think right now, with where she is, you know, we're all, I think, familiar with where she's at now. I mean, this is just a long time coming. I think that's why everybody is so behind it.
She's come a long way from NXT. It's only been, what, 4 years now? 4 years? Since, you know, they have all come up from NXT, and they've all...
3 years ago was the
2015, right?
was the WrestleMania match with Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha. And again, huge for me as a female and as a wrestling fan. And like, look at all of them separately, you know, but then
they've all had their own careers.
Exactly, and they've made so much history. As I mean, we hear that word constantly now in the WWE. Oh, we're making history, but it's true, and you see it. And I think that's what's so unique about this situation right now with Charlotte and Becky, because I think everybody can they can try to kind of stuff it in the box, the cliched box of, oh, the best friend turned on the best friend, and make it like, oh, this trope has been done over and over again, but there's something so authentic about it that you can't help but love it. It's so different and individual. It's original, and it's different than any other circumstance in which we've had two female characters
that aren't being catty in it.
Right.
You know,
It's
actually
believable.
Legit.
We believe both of them.
And I honestly think that has to do with the fact that we've said this a million times before. Becky, her career has made her really relatable. Her as a person, she's very relatable.
Yeah.
If you look at it, you can tell that so many people within the company and just everywhere, they've always been a Becky fan.
Mm-hmm. It's hard not to be, and I think it's because of her authenticity.
When you look at the draft, exactly, and when you, like I said, when you look at the draft, first woman drafted to SmackDown. I know that's supposed to happen. That's a work, but the way it happened, Daniel Bryan. It could have been scripted. I don't know. I feel like it wasn't when he had said,
I don't think so.
The
he
best
kind of
woman
is similar
for,
in his authenticity. I think that he really speaks from his heart too, and
right.
I respect that about him. And
you can tell he sees talent.
Mm-hmm.
He's talented himself. He knows talent.
Think about Triple H. I mean, he has said time and time again, that women's wrestling is wrestling.
Well, he's had the hand in training a lot of them and making sure they're getting their spot.
Exactly. I mean, Stephanie McMahon, my hero, my shiro, she has even gone on the record to say, like, he went out of his way, Triple H, to train the women like the men. Yeah. When he kind of acquired control, if you will, of NXT, he made the decision and said, like, no, you're going to be trained like these men. And I think,
athletes.
At the time, I can only imagine what was going through his mind, but look at it now. Like, WWE is women's wrestling right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's huge, and I never thought I would ever say that. I never thought that the women would be main eventing pay-per-views and
SmackDown, Raw, everything.
Raw. I never expected to be so invested in women's wrestling and in this particular trope of best friend turning on best friend. I never thought I could be invested in that.
And like I said, it's relatable simply because of her career has always been, just she's fighting for it. She's constantly having to prove it. She's just almost there, and then, something gets in the way.
Right, and I think it's so different than any other we've seen. Because, we see that particular trope all the time. Daniel Bryan, Natalia. We see that kind of thing often. But with her, there's something so unique about it because, like I said before, she's never had to tell us. No.
She just goes out there and she does it. She doesn't complain. She just, which is why I think that's really what added to the entire turn was the fact that she never complained. She always just worked hard to earn it.
She is the definition of a workhorse. Yeah. And it's so funny because it's not even her character isn't the workhorse.
No, it's her.
It's her. She's
put in the
hard.
work. She's
showing up.
She's showing up.
She's doing what she has to do. Yeah. Like they'll put her in these precarious positions, and she's gonna do her best in that situation. She's gonna make sure that her match is the highlight of that episode.
And
that
what's crazy is that she's been the first of a lot of things. She's been the first SmackDown Women's Champion, first woman drafted to SmackDown. She was the first woman to have a match against a male competitor in how many years?
Right.
With James Ellsworth. Mm-hmm. I thought the match was great. It was fun. It was supposed to be goofy. That's what it was.
Right.
But she made it work. It was entertaining.
She and Charlotte are going to be in a last woman standing match, and I know we've been having these incredible moments of these stipulations, first time ever, Iron Woman match.
They haven't made sense
Steel
really.
Cage, but this one is this is the one that we've been waiting for. I think since that moment at WrestleMania with that triple threat match, this is the match we've been waiting for.
Well, and what's interesting is that this one, in particular, it's been built up. It's kind of been it's the only match that makes sense for the rivalry.
Right. I don't think any of us feel like we're kept in the dark at all.
And with the other
important.
matches, the Iron Man matches and whatnot, the matches themselves, sure, they're really good. They're interesting. It's like, oh, first time ever. But at the same time, they weren't necessarily built up. They were just kind of on the spot. Hey, we're gonna do
make this happen. We're gonna make history, which is beautiful.
I specifically remember in NXT when Sasha and Bayley had the first ever Iron Woman match. It was literally just they were out there, they were having a promo against each other. Sasha Banks was champion at the time, and she said, I want to beat you over and over again. They were kind of hinting at it in that episode.
It's like they were creating a history-making moment rather than a storyline.
Yeah. And it was just kind of an in-the-moment thing. William Regal comes out, says, "Oh, Iron Woman match at the Takeover." Whereas this one, there have been so many things that have happened, built up to it.
Right, and not only really, just like the heel turn. I think like since the heel turn, we've seen Becky coming out and just demolishing Charlotte. We've seen them in a battle of wits, and now we see them in ring competition in which neither of them win the match. So they're actually crafting a story here, which I think is so important, and it's something that I've been waiting for within the WWE to really just give them a story. Let it go. Don't try to control and say we want to have this, and this. Like, give them control the reign.
And that's really honestly what I think is happening here, is that they're kind of just letting them tell the story instead of heavily scripting it. Obviously they have plans of what they're going to do,
of course, but I think they're being very intelligent about this. And
what's interesting about that is, they always say best friends make better enemies. It's true. You can name a bunch of different superstars past and present that best friends that have made great rivals. Shawn Michaels and Triple H, for starters, they've always been best friends, but their matches are great.
I think what makes this one so incredible is the fact that this is going to be that rivalry. This is going to be the DX.
This is the rivalry.
This is going to be the, all of that. And when we look back 10, 20 years from now, we're going to look back at the women's evolution and we're going to remember Becky versus Charlotte. And I think that is monumentous. Like, that is huge.
They've had things before similar to it with the women. I mean, they've had Brie Bella versus Nikki Bella. I honestly think, not to discredit anyone, but Charlotte and Becky are arguably two of the most technical wrestlers and just overall good wrestlers.
I mean, I could talk about this all day long. They are the women's division. They are the top of the women's division. I love and respect and honor every single woman on the roster, and they're all working so hard, and they've all played their hand in this evolution. But when I look at Becky and Charlotte and the way that they are coming into their own and carrying this storyline in particular, they've got something that's huge.
Magic. It's money. It's great.
Magic. It really is. And like I said, this is going to be the rivalry that we look back on. And
definitely.
I think it's important for WWE to recognize this right now, because this is a story that we want to see play out to the end.
Definitely.
We don't want this to be cut short. We don't want any fluke endings. We want this one to play out. We want to see this happen, because it's such an interesting and unique situation in which the face and the heel, they're getting opposing reactions for very interesting reasons. It's not that anybody dislikes Charlotte.
No. Well, I mean,
certainly don't.
Some people do. I get that, but at the same time, it's not discrediting her. It's more it's Becky's time.
It's Becky's time, for real. Yeah, and that's what's so amazing about the storyline. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point, and I think that's what makes this rivalry so significant, and one that the WWE needs to really take notice of and take notes of, because to really see what is the WWE Universe responding to?
Right.
Why are they so invested in this right now? It's because you have this superstar right here and Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte
Flair, yeah. Who, both of them in their own right, you know, neither of them have had to profess their talent. Neither of them have had to pander. They both are workhorses in opposite ways.
Correct. And they it's interesting because they have different styles that complement each other, which is very rare because, I mean, you see a lot of, if you get a brawler type with a technical wrestler, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
With both of them, they are both technically sound. Becky is probably the most technically sound woman on the roster.
Absolutely. Those arm drags.
Nobody does an arm drag like Becky.
No.
It's like Ricky Steamboat style. Like, geez, her and Sami Zayn are just
right.
top notch.
Oh my god.
Charlotte, it's interesting. She's definitely a hybrid type. You know, she's obviously
she's a flair.
She
really is through and through. She's a flair, she performs with flair.
That's the thing with her is that even though she's a hybrid style, she really is just her own type of wrestler.
Right. She's a solid performer.
Yeah, she's a performer wrestler. Becky, technical wrestler. You know, it's supposed to be very wrestling match.
Yes.
Charlotte, performer. That's her thing.
And
she
I
performs.
think what also really makes a difference in this particular scenario is they are both so gifted on the mic.
Yeah.
They really are. And you know, I will argue that I prefer Charlotte as a heel character. I do think that she excels and shines as a heel character, whereas Becky can really do anything. I'm like blown away every time she goes out there with a microphone. I mean, after she turned on Charlotte and that whole thing, she came out and attacked her. Even you could hear it in the crowd. They're saying, "Give her a mic, give her a mic," because we know, you know. And they finally did. They gave her that mic, and the crowd just ate it up.
And that's honestly where I think, you know, this is just kind of speculation, but I feel like this is something Triple H would do. Is Triple H knows that if you have a heel, you have to give them a microphone. Mm-hmm. If they're not going to succeed on the microphone, they're not going to succeed at all.
Right. A heel is an antagonist.
Yes, a heel is an antagonist. You know, you've got, with Brock Lesnar as a heel, he had Paul Heyman talking for him. Mm-hmm. If someone can't talk on their own, that's always a good strategy. Mm-hmm. But they never really gave Becky a chance with the microphone, you know, and when they did, it was always something cheesy.
Right.
You know, obviously the puns are great. You know, like that's her. That's how she is. But at the same time, you could tell it was just not really her. It wasn't really her saying what she needed to. I think it was an
aspect of her personality, but she wasn't able to showcase her capabilities as a performer.
Right.
And I think now, because of her status where she is now, she has the opportunity. She has the stage to go out there and perform and to show people what she's got. And she's proving it. Like, she is stepping up. When is the last time you can think of when you had two people up on the Titantron just talking back and forth? That was entertaining.
Yeah, usually it's kind of boring.
Yeah, you're waiting for it to be over, you know? When they did that with Becky and Charlotte, I was glued. Great. I was glued to the TV, waiting for what they were going to say next. It was amazing. And I think because they know each other so well,
they know what to say.
Yeah.
They know what to say.
They really do.
Obviously they
complement each other so well.
They have their own plot points where they're supposed to say this, promote this, whatever. But just the simple things that they have said to each other, specifically Becky, what she said to Charlotte, it's crazy.
She's cutting deep, you know, and
it's
interesting. You have to draw from somewhere real. I remember, Chris Jericho and Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah.
You know, they even say back at that time when he had commented on her enhancements, you know, back in the day.
It was a big deal. It was like,
it was huge. God. Like, everyone was like, "Oh my God, did that actually just happen?" And they went on the record to say, you know, you have to draw from something real because yes, we're telling a story. Yes, it's fictitious, but we want the crowd to believe us
and react.
Yes.
You know? And that's really.
I think it's a skill too.
It's definitely a skill. It's really interesting because hey, you
I
wouldn't
think
expect
they both
that.
have danced on the line, which I
Yeah,
really like.
you
Nobody has
wouldn't expect
crossed
that.
the line. You know, I think back in the PCB days with Paige, I think she crossed the line a little bit
Yeah,
at a
she
certain
definitely,
point. She crossed the line, and she did grow from that, and she learned, and I think everybody kind of has their moments where they kind of fall down. But what I really like, it's so interesting because you think about the actual story here. You know, one friend is upset at the other friend because she stole her spotlight, and it sounds like the most high school teeny bopper, you know, rivalry, but it's such a mature storyline.
well, it's
so
been
strange.
built up. It's been built up for years. We've seen it develop.
Yes.
That's one of the key points to this whole thing.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't happened overnight.
Right.
It didn't just, you know, all of a sudden.
Right. There's no
this
one
is going
coming
on.
in and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, this happened to me."
Yeah.
You know, it was like
There's
we're
no
standing
one-
here like, "Hey, why is this happening
There's
to her?"
no one telling her, "Hey, this is happening to you,"
Right.
either. It's literally just been happening before
Right
our
before
eyes.
our
We've
eyes.
seen it every single time, which is why I think this is so brilliant. I
Mhm.
think it's genius.
Right.
I mean, you look back, women's Money in the Bank, both of them, Becky is kind of getting, you know, like she got the short end of the stick both times, almost winning and then not.
Right.
It's always something pulling her back. You know, this is her moment, Everyone's expecting it. Everyone wants it to happen.
And I think it's such
and
a
it doesn't.
sneaky thing that
It
they've done
is.
because it's never been blatant. Because I think back to Roman Reigns, you know, at that Money in the Bank where we thought he was going to win at
Yeah.
that time, and
We're
it was
like,
kind of
oh.
like, it felt very staged. Like we were supposed to see that and be like, oh, he was close, you know. With her, it's never been that way. We've
No.
never had, the WWE has never been behind her, as you know what I mean. And it's always been, we are noticing it in the background, and we're
see,
seeing like she's getting the short end of the stick here every single time.
One thing that I really appreciated is that it genuinely like frustrated me and made me almost upset whenever I would see, you know, she's not getting what she deserves, and she definitely deserves it. Which, if they've been planning that for this long, bravo.
I mean, I know,
that
like
is
we had been
amazing.
we talked about this just a while ago.
So
like
many times.
if this was a strategic move,
for 4
wow.
years, that's amazing.
that is amazing because this is
Well, you know,
the
they
company
had
right
they
now.
had to have seen before
right.
how talented she is. She's only gone up.
Right.
Too. She's never gone down.
She doesn't plateau.
She's never been bad. She's never had, in my opinion, she's never had a bad match.
I agree. She's a consistent superstar.
very
She puts on a
consistent.
great show.
Great.
I mean, you say this every time, and it's so true. She takes so many beatings.
She does.
You know?
She's always the one.
She's the fall guy.
She's the fall guy, but that's because she's the only one who can.
Right.
And that's not to knock anyone. That's literally just because it's believable.
That's the thing that I think a lot of people don't take into consideration about the WWE. It is a lot.
Yes.
It is a very difficult skill. They're having to balance so many things at once. It is not discrediting somebody to say that you can't do it all. You know what I'm saying? She just has a skill in certain areas that far surpass others.
Yeah.
And, you know, vice versa. Some of them have something that she doesn't or whatever. But yeah, in that way, she is the person who can take the bump.
Yeah. And that's one of the only things that really kept me to where I was just like, you know, I'm fine with this because she was always there. Even if she's the one getting beat up, she's the one taking the fall, whatever.
She shows up.
She's there. She's on screen. You know, she might be the one being hit by everyone, but you see her.
Right.
That's the one you see. You see this one person hitting her.
Think
they get their
about-
30 seconds of fame.
Think about TV, media, entertainment.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
Yeah, to get screen time.
Yes.
You're getting your face out there. You're putting on a show. You're making it entertaining.
And she didn't have to do anything
No.
except be herself and do her job.
Take a
And
bump,
it
you know.
put her out there, you know, and she didn't have to go and do anything outrageous. She didn't have to seek publicity stunts. She didn't have to do anything except her job.
I think one of the greatest things is that she's willing to do, you know, like high risk, big bumps. She'll take the bumps. She'll, you know, deliver the bumps. She doesn't have to go out of her way though to do high flying moves. You rarely
To be charismatic,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, I don't want to say rarely, but she doesn't often, you know, go to the top rope. She doesn't often fly through the ropes. Not always doing a suicide dive. Not always taking these big bumps. I mean, just recently, obviously, she did take a big bump. She got
cracked
speared
her
through.
jaw,
Yeah,
too.
she cracked her jaw, and she got speared through an LED board. That's great, but you know, she didn't jump off of a
Right, and I think
30-foot ladder.
that's what held a lot of people back from her for a long time. A lot of the fans, I mean, you know, she wasn't putting on this elaborate flair that everybody was
Which is
accustomed to seeing in WWE.
one thing that's interesting with that is it's almost Randy Orton-esque, because Randy Orton, when he first started out, you know, he wanted to do you know, some flashy things. I don't remember exactly who told him. I think it might have been Ric Flair. Don't quote me on that. That told him, you know, your key right now is longevity. You don't have to do this. You're good. You don't have to jump off of everything. You don't have to do these high risk things because you're that good. You're gonna be here for a long time.
That's a really interesting comparison.
That's where I
he's
think,
a timeless superstar.
Yeah, he's been consistent. I mean, obviously he's evolved. He's like Chris Jericho. They evolve, but they're still consistent. They're still Randy Orton. They're still Chris Jericho. They're still Becky Lynch.
Yeah.
Like we said, you know, Becky, it took her a little while to find her niche, but once she did, she's been very consistent.
Oh yeah.
Ever since.
She hit the ground running.
You know, exactly.
She's never stopped, and it's so admirable, and we see. I mean, it kind of cracks me up because she is the most humble person I've ever seen. Like, obviously, I don't know her, but what she's presenting to the world, I'm floored. Even now, it makes me laugh because even in character, I'll see her, you know, in these podcasts and these interviews, and she is still Becky Lynch. You can still feel it.
Very humble too.
You know, so humble.
And that's one thing that I've always loved about her is that she's always been humble.
Yes.
You know, and that's difficult for a lot of people.
Right.
And I think the fact that she hasn't been, you know, I don't want to say handed anything, like, you know, but she hasn't been handed anything.
She's had to work for
She's worked for
and
everything
I think
she's done.
that's why I think it's been so important for her to experience that. Because imagine if she had been handed everything. I'm not saying that she would be an awful person. I don't know. But I think that...
Well, we've compared Seth Rollins before. You know,
Right.
he won the first ever NXT championship, and it kind of got to his head. You know, then it kind of took someone saying, hey,
Yeah, Joey
do
Mercury.
you want to stay here? Because if you're going to be like that, then you're not going to be here for very
because
long.
it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work.
This is a business. This is a family.
This
you know.
isn't the Seth Rollins show. This
Exactly.
is NXT.
We have to take care of our partner in the ring and whoever we're
and
performing
we have
with.
it's also, like you said, it's a company, it's a business. It's a show. You know, if you're gonna let your ego get to your head,
why be there?
Why
you
be
know,
there?
because this isn't. It's not
entertainment.
It is entertainment.
It's not for you. It's for everyone else. It's the fans.
Right. And I think that they see that in Becky. She embodies WWE's standards. You know, I've heard Stephanie McMahon speak many times on, you know, what it takes and what it means to be a WWE superstar and to be a part of the company, and they really look for people who are going to upstand their values and to really be
the face.
Yes, every person on the roster is the face of this company. So you have to act like it and present a certain way. And I mean, speaking of Stephanie, like, think back to the Royal Rumble this year. I mean, we were both kind of like shocked a little bit.
There's
floored.
kind of little, you know,
these
little
things. Sprinkles there. Where like she was really upping Becky Lynch in that Royal Rumble match.
Which it was great because it was very sly.
Right.
Not a lot of people caught it, but people who did, you know, they took, haha, I got that.
You hear it and you're like, oh, Stephanie's talking up
good,
Becky
you know?
Lynch. You know?
And that's really what I mean by, you know, they see it, they know.
Yeah.
After the Becky turn, there was so many legends and everyone saying, you know, finally, you know, I've been a Becky fan since day one. That's what they keep saying.
And now this is what it took
Stone
for her
Cold
to main
alone,
event.
you know?
This is what it took for her to get the main stage. Yeah, Stone Cold.
She needed her own spotlight, basically. She needed a chance.
Right.
That's really what it came down to. And I mean, it's really strange that it took this long. I'm not complaining because it's been great so far, but it's strange that it's taken so long because um, she really does have everything. We've said this before.
Yeah.
She has everything. It's almost not fair
It
because
really is.
she's really good in the ring, very technically sound, great wrestler. She's good on the mic. You know, like let her go free. She's beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
like she's muscular, fit. You know, but she's still feminine. She has
athletic,
everything they want.
She upholds all of the standards. She's just a very well-rounded
She
superstar.
has everything they're looking for, everything they want, everything they need.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it taking this long? But at the same time,
I think, but in a way though, she is very unique and very different, and it took them, I think, a little while to really see that this is what we want.
And you know, I think that's why she has so many fans, is that because she's so unique, she's real. She's human.
Real.
She's relatable because you see her, she's being herself. Mm-hmm. This is a realistic sort of scenario,
right.
You know, that's happened. She's a very real person.
Like, I totally agree, because
relatable.
I think about this whole scenario with her finally reaching her breaking point, and I understand what that feels like, and I think everybody on some level understands what it feels like to constantly be pushed down, be in someone else's shadow, be, you know, at some point in your life you understand that. And so although I'm a fan of the direction that they're taking it, for them to treat it as a heel turn is kind of funny.
It is, because, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin himself said, you know, she's not the heel here.
Yeah, like
she's made
Charlotte
the
has the heel storyline.
She has the heel storyline.
Weirdly enough.
What's great, I think we've already said this, but I'm gonna say it again. She can be either a heel or a face. It doesn't matter. She's good at it.
Yes.
When she was a face, she still had so many fans. When she's a heel, it's money, it's fire.
Right.
She can do whatever she needs to do. She's just that good.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter which way she
rare.
goes.
You know, she is really like a diamond in the rough.
I guess that kind of compares to Randy Orton again, where, you know, obviously he had some storylines where it was kind of like, oh, what is this? When he was,
but I don't think that's a testament
Orton,
to him as a performer.
No, that's just, you know, that's just something that in the moment they said, oh, hey, you know, we're gonna do this. All right, you know, he's gonna run with it. But you know, when he had his vicious Viper streak, you know, DDTing Stephanie McMahon, that was amazing.
Oh my gosh, when Triple H showed up at his house with a sledgehammer, like that was
very underrated feud in my opinion. You know, WWE recently posted a top 5 Triple H feuds. That wasn't on there, and I was disappointed.
That's my favorite.
That was
my favorite
arguably one of the best feuds of the modern era.
I think, you know, and I mean we were young at that time, but I do think that felt so real. And I think that's what made it so interesting. That's why I like the Becky and Charlotte.
That was kind of the pinnacle of the Viper. Right. You know, I think that's where they need to go with the Becky thing. You know, not necessarily to that extent, because, you know, even though he was the Viper, he would strike out of nowhere. He was still kind of weaselly. Becky is kind of different in the fact that she's good enough where she can win.
Right,
That's
she's a force, you know,
right.
And when she shows up, I enjoy her attacking Charlotte. Yeah. You know, usually it's the other way around. Someone else is coming after the champ.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's rare for the champion to attack the challenger, unless they're, you know, like The Miz has done it before with John Cena when he feuded with him for the WWE title, when he finally got his big push. But his character, his gimmick has always been, you know, that weaselly thing. Becky and Charlotte, they're so evenly matched that they kind of have to go back and forth.
That's why they're the only women who can do this last woman standing match.
And that's really what it comes down to. The last woman standing match, they're just both so good. It's really just who's the top dog, so to speak. You know, who is their true face. And I think this is really the make or break point for WWE. Not just for them, but for WWE. How they're going to set both of these characters.
How are they going to handle this scenario? That's what, you know, and we talk about this all the time about how it's concerning, because you start to wonder, like, where are they going with this? Don't screw this up. Don't do this, you know. And I'm really interested to see what angle they take, because this is really make or break. It really is, like you said.
If they give them free reign, I think, like, not free reign, obviously, like, they're going to have their predetermined things, what they're going to do. But if they give them enough control to make it to where it's going how it's been going,
Right.
it's going to be money.
I think, and I think that they're very smart business people. They know what to do. They know how to entertain. They know what they're doing. But if they were to really pay attention to what the universe wants, I think that they would ride this wave of having Becky as the champion.
Be dominant.
And be a dominant champion.
I get having Charlotte Flair look strong, which is...
that's the thing. She doesn't have to.
She doesn't
prove
have
that.
to, no.
We know.
One thing that I, to make a sort of, I guess you could say it's a kind of a prediction for the Evolution pay-per-view, what I personally think would be great to happen, they might have something else planned, I'm sure they do, to have something else completely different. But what I would like to see is a sort of Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa-esque ending to the Last Man Standing match, or Last Woman Standing, where, in that match, Johnny Gargano, he took himself out. He kind of took out Tommaso Ciampa at the end. Johnny Gargano, he took himself out, it was his own mistake, I don't want to say it's a mistake, but it's basically a mistake. He was in the moment, he did something risky, it didn't pay off for him, and it kind of cost him the match. He took himself down. Tommaso Ciampa kind of just barely rolled to his feet. That's something that they can do that won't really harm either one.
Right, and I agree. And I think that what's interesting about this is I'm a big fan of matches in which not only are they evenly matched, but I'm intrigued for either outcome.
Right.
It wouldn't hurt Becky to lose to Charlotte, but at the same time, it's not the right time.
I honestly think that when it comes down to who would be hurt more by a loss, I honestly think having Becky drop the title is the worst case scenario.
That is the worst case scenario for sure.
I'm fine having her lose a match in some way.
Right, losing by disqualification is perfect.
Great. That one makes sense because, with her being this character, this is kind of the one feud where a dominant champion can get away with quote-unquote cheating or whatever to win. Because, Charlotte has established herself. Mm-hmm. She's this character. She's this
and I think it's
amazing
time
character.
Within this women's evolution for them to introduce
a dominant
champion.
Because they've never really had one. NXT, you had Asuka. At the same time, I thought it was cool that,
but it was such a different scenario.
It was different because she was unstoppable.
Exactly. She showed up and it was this is Asuka. She's here. She's gonna, with Becky, like I said, we've seen her climb.
With her too, she's lost before. It's believable that she could lose. Mm-hmm. So you don't know. And then if they go this way with a dominant champion and have her dominate, then it's just like she's just that good.
Yeah.
She's
and
finally
she's
reached her
that
potential.
Breaking point where she's snapped. So it
makes sense to have her. It lit a fire in her. Now she's just she's not gonna give this title up.
Right.
Because this is what she's worked so hard for.
And I think they tried this whole angle with Natalya when she won the championship with the whole, I deserve this, I'm, and the whole heel champion thing. And I think the difference is she wasn't being herself. No, she was trying too hard to put on a show, and I get that, that's the job. Right. But at the same time, like you said, she wasn't being herself. She was kind of just although Becky is being different, she's a heel character, she's still being Becky, and she's still bringing her truth into it. She didn't completely change her gimmick for the sake of the heel turn. Right. She didn't become someone else. And I think that's why, people are making the comparison, she's the Stone Cold of the women's division and all that. You can compare her to as many people as you want. She's Becky Lynch. She's Becky Lynch. She's, everyone always, I want to be the next Shawn Michaels. I want to be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin. She's the very first Becky Lynch. She's very unique. I've seen people compare her to Lita or Trish, and I'm like, there's no contest. There's no contest there. And I think Becky Lynch. What's amazing, so much respect for all the women from then, now, and forever. Of course, all of them have paved the way. They've all played a valuable part in this evolution, no matter where they showed up in the company. But when I think about the future, like I said before, 10, 20 years from now, we you know, young girls are going to be looking back and being like, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, you know, this is
obviously,
the
you know,
rivalry.
people will remember Trish and Lita.
Of course, forever.
People will remember
They're
Ivory,
legends.
Jacqueline, you know, they're literally Hall of Famers. So it's you know, they've kind of paved the way.
You know, and I think about the women who I think get a bad rap, especially from the fans in the universe, and it's, you know, the women who existed in the era of potty break matches. And, you know, I think about the Bella Twins, I think about Kelly, Michelle McCool,
Maurice, they're great.
Yeah.
Michelle McCool, I mean, I just want to take a side note. Michelle McCool has always been great.
Fantastic.
One of the better workers, in my opinion, of that
Eve
era.
Torres, you know, just
Eve
like...
was underrated.
I agree. Like, there's so many women who have played such a major role, and without them, you know, of course there's AJ, of course there's Paige, you know, these people who like were trailblazers of their time, and, you know, obviously give credit where it's due. But looking at the state of this evolution, Becky Lynch is unlike any other.
Honestly, if you have someone that you would choose to be a female role model, you can't really look anywhere else other than Becky. I mean, you could look at Charlotte. You know, Charlotte's a good role model. Some people look at the Bellas, you know, you do you. I think
Bailey's great.
Bailey's good. We're not going to talk about Sasha right now. But we won't go down that road.
Even, you know, I look at like Alexa Bliss and Carmella, and they're
a lot of people
fantastic.
don't like, you know, Alexa Bliss and Carmella, but at the same time,
they are proof of how important it is to have excellent mic skills.
Excellent mic skills, and also, you know, so many people now, when they see the women's evolution, they think, oh, you know, they can't be, you know,
a diva
or like a feminine-esque character.
I disagree, because that's them. Some women are like that, you know, and it's this evolution is about representing all women. And like, just as a side note, Carmella's matches with Charlotte were amazing, and you guys are not giving that woman enough credit.
No. She is definitely one to have been improved. You know, that didn't really make sense, but in NXT, you know, she wasn't the best, sure, but she tried, you know, and she improved. She definitely improved up to the main roster. They gave her a chance, and she ran with it. That's another case.
She and Alexa, same thing.
I mean, that's
same scenario.
It's the same exact thing.
Proven that they are worthy.
It's the same thing that I was saying about, you know, the heel turn. Give them a mic, and they proved that they're that good. You give them a microphone, and they're gonna run with it. You know, give them the chance to shine.
That's why this is so important for Becky right now, and I'm so excited, and I feel like we could talk forever.
Well, yeah, I'm sure this is just part one.
Yeah, totally part one. She's gonna have so many more accolades.
Well, okay, you know, we've talked about Chris Jericho before. His career, he's already had a legendary career. I wouldn't say he's done. You know, he still has some, you know, some left in him. He's still going strong in Japan. But at the same time, we're able to narrow down, you know, these are some of his best moments in his career.
He's a seasoned
he's a seasoned
legend,
vet. He's been through it all.
Becky's just getting started. She's just think about that. She's just getting started, and we're, you know,
15 years of experience.
Yeah, it's
That's
amazing.
Crazy.
It's incredible, and I can't wait to see where she goes. All of the women. I can't
think
wait.
That's one of the most interesting things. That one of the last things I wanted to talk about was that, you know, everyone always says, you know, if you don't have this much experience, then you're not that good. Whatever. You know, that's why a lot of people didn't like Alexa Bliss or Carmella, but they loved Asuka. Asuka has so many years of experience. They love Paige. She had 13 years of experience or whatever. Becky, 15 years of experience.
I never hear anybody talk about it.
Trained by Finn Balor.
Strange. Yeah.
And I honestly, when it comes to the humble thing, you know, she's had an interesting life. You know, wrestling saved her basically. You know, she was going down a dark path, she said, and wrestling brought her back, and that kind of became her new love, her new addiction, or whatever, you know, whatever you want to call it. That really, it's a real life scenario. That happens. You know, she's a real person.
Think about, like, look at, since, like, okay, obviously we had, like I said before, AJ and Paige, who came in, who were very unique, very different. They kind of opened this new door for people to just be themselves and not have to be this Barbie dream girl, you know? But I mean, look at Becky Lynch and Charlotte even, but Becky Lynch in particular, her demeanor, her style, and now we're seeing so many women who are just so free, you know, coming up. Like, I mean, Rhea Ripley, I cannot wait for her to be in the presence of Becky and Charlotte and women like that.
But Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte, you know.
Oh gosh.
We'll have another. I'm sure we'll have another episode with Rhea Ripley because
I'm just
seeing
so
her come up
excited,
is
you know,
great.
to see like these people who now like.
Well, they're so young too.
They are so young. And they have this opportunity now because of people like her.
People like Becky, you know, you can give credit to all of the women.
All of them, because every single one of them are so unique, and I think that is, you know, the period at the end of the word evolution is that everybody now gets to be themselves.
Right. And I think what really kind of just, you know, what kind of is just really cool about this whole thing, that with the whole Becky thing, is she's set a sort of new standard for women's wrestling entertainment, just in general, wrestling in general, not just women's wrestling. You know, you look at this whole thing, and I think that's really what's cool about the evolution, you know, the women's wrestling thing, is that it's not just about women's wrestling.
It's raised the standard for all wrestling. You see some men coming in, and it's like, you have to work as hard. You gotta do it.
You know, you can't just come in here and say, you know, I'm the top guy over here, so why can't I be the top guy here?
Yeah. It's about everybody, and that's what's really cool about it.
And that's, you know, not to throw shade at anyone, but SmackDown and Raw, they're kind of doing two completely different things. You know, Ronda Rousey, sure, you know, she's big name, she's bringing in ratings. I get why they're doing that with her. Whereas Becky, you know, her whole thing, she's earned it. Mm-hmm. She's worked hard.
And
she didn't just come in and win.
Polar opposites on SmackDown and Raw
now. And you know, Ronda Rousey, top star in UFC, she comes in, big money, make her the face. You know, it makes sense.
I still think that a great Survivor Series match would be a submission match between Becky and Ronda Rousey. I just think that
would be amazing. That's another scenario where it wouldn't hurt Becky to lose.
Right. But it would be an amazing match.
It would be amazing, and you know, that could be one of those things. Disqualification.
That's like a dream match.
That is a dream match.
Like you hear about that's a dream match. You want to see that.
People want to see Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte, and I'd love to see that. But at the same time,
but like think about a submission match.
They're both technical.
Think about armbar versus armbar.
Well, they're both so technical. Hip throws, you know.
They have all the judo throws. They have the groundwork. They have oh gosh,
it would be a wrestling match.
It really would.
Which
that
is
would be
great.
So. Ooh, and think about, because she's already kind of dragged Ronda a little bit in her promos recently. You kind of throw in a little bit of shade. Imagine that scenario. I think she would kill it. She would really kill it on that stage. Anyway, I think we're. Like I said, we could talk about this forever.
I could talk about this all day.
This is just part one. Of course, we will come back again at some point with some more Becky Lynch talk. But that's all we got for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you agree, let us know. Of course you agree. How could you not? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to our channel. And give this video a thumbs up. Share it with the naysayers who need a little lesson in the Becky Lynch.
Show your friends, show your family, show your children.
Show it all.
Your children's children, your nieces, your nephews,
your dog,
your dogs, your cats, your birds.
And we'll see you in the next
The
video.
deer in the front yard.
Okay.
All of them.